Brawlhalla over the last nearly 3 years has been in a game state that I personally have seen from countless other competitive multiplayer games in the past. However, this time it's different.
Even though it maintains its loyal, consistent player base, its recent fall-off has been something beyond anything I've ever seen, even in other games such as Rocket League or Overwatch, who've both tanked in numbers but still managed to hold on to their community better.
For this reason, it makes sense why, although they've been around for the better part of a decade, with the community backing them, they managed to keep relevant and produce enjoyable content from time to time. Whereas, with where Brawlhalla stands, it's barely recognized on any social media and is currently sitting at much lower player rates than at its prime.
If we actually search up Brawlhalla on YouTube, and then we go to videos, we'll see that all of these are barely hitting 50k, and most of them aren't even mainstream. They're coming from 3 specific YouTubers. Even the biggest YouTuber here is just pissed off about the entire community. However, if we go to the actual Brawlhalla official account, we'll see something pretty scary with the numbers. Barely cracking 10k on almost their top
100 videos. That's a grand final from the mid-season championship, one of the biggest championships of this year. However, if we go to popular videos, we'll see that almost all the esports videos, or just videos in general,
have millions to hundreds of thousands of views. And these aren't big videos either. These aren't grand finals, these are just semi-finals. But they're cracking hundreds of thousands of views. And that's just how popular Brawlhalla used to be.
I also want to talk about its competitive scene, as it was the most appealing factor about the game and has since fallen tremendously. There are substantially smaller viewer counts on both YouTube and Twitch, where it once thrived as a titan in the free-to-play esport community.
I think that putting aside the development issues with promoting, the only thing separating this current era of Brawlhalla professional play and previous years is the narrative and competitive spirit that used to be visually shown throughout the set. Emotion just adds a whole other layer of entertainment, which I haven't seen in professional Brawlhalla since Use won PCX.
I mean, let's be honest though, we once had Boomy posting a tweet mid-set to disrespect his opponent, we had rivalries with Sandstorm versus Boomy, then Sandstorm and Boomy as teammates against the best 2v2 teams, we had Prime Koslix, Prime Wrench, Prime Blaze and Acno, and just EU and versus NA in general, and it's really hard to match that intensity.
I'm not saying competitive Brawlhalla is awful or unwatchable now, it just doesn't have the same hype and the same involvement from the company and the casters. It just doesn't have as interesting of a story anymore, and I think that there are steps that could be taken to re-spark fans to come back to watching this game. I'm going to pivot for a bit and I'm going to go on a tangent regarding another game that kind of had similar issues like Brawlhalla. Taking Overwatch as an example, it was once a major esport with hundreds of thousands of fans, but slowly became a game that regressed in popularity and found itself stuck, with just its loyal player base being the remaining few still playing day after day. Although it could be largely
Due to the fact that the game cost money, it still seemed like it would stay at this level of interest forever until they made a giant change. As they made Overwatch 2, it brought the game new hope, new hype, and new opportunities. Major streamers were playing it, videos were being made around the hype train it became, and it honestly revitalized the enjoyment and freshness of the gameplay for the player base, and it brought new players into the scene and set it back on the map. Even if the hype of Overwatch 2 isn't lasting as well as longtime fans of the game would hope, it was a significant and refreshing change for the game and its player base.
That was a really random comparison I threw in there, but hopefully some of you understand what I'm getting at. I just think that, as a major fan of Brawlhalla myself, that something has to be done about its staleness and lack of changes over the last 5 years. And I'm not talking about a release of Brawlhalla 2 directly, I just think that there has to be some major changes worked on as soon as possible. Because, I mean, there hasn't been positive feedback from players or creators in a while that I've seen, with many important YouTubers and streamers making videos on how Brawlhalla needs to fix their game, or just criticizing it. And honestly, if I'm a new player coming to this game, or if I'm an old player trying to return, that's going to set me off a lot. I mean, when a former professional player and a longtime content creator like Koslix bands together with one of the most loved commentators in Brawlhalla history, and they go and they make a 2-hour video on the concerns they have about the game they both love, you know that there are some issues. Even Pavelski, one of the largest creators in the game for the last few years, gave his own criticisms and concerns in a pretty long video. Every few days, it's just a new video about how the game is failing, and the criticisms are no longer just about the RGB colors costing money or the fake discounts they put on bundles. They are about the lack of care the game has now from the development team in comparison to earlier years. Again, it's hard to watch from the perspective of a devoted fan who had spent countless hours enjoying this game, playing this game with friends, and grinding towards goals. But I really hope that we can see changes being brought in the coming months of this game, or we will be stuck with an unhappy community and stale gameplay. Before the video ends, I just want to make a statement here. I do understand that Brawlhalla recently came out with a stream that covered a lot of hopes and contained a lot of honesty from the devs directly. I'll be making a video on this as soon as possible. This took way too long for me, my first video and all, so I just want to let you know, bear with me for a few days as I get back on my schedule, and I'll be covering my thoughts on this stream from the devs as soon as possible.